Hi everyone, welcome to our second module. In this module, we're going to learn a bit more about forecasting and why is that important for supply chain management, especially for the organization as a whole. So what is forecast? The idea of forecast is to get a prediction of future events, and it's that use it only for planning purposes. It's important to make sure that all organizations need to get any kind of a direction in the future. So we need to know at least the trend for our production as a whole. For doing this, it's important to make sure that forecasts are always wrong. Seems weird to think about it, but that's true. If you're using this kind of exercise for planning only, it's important to keep in mind that we are predicting the future. We don't have any kind of a crystal ball to see exactly what's going to happen in the future, but we're going to do an exercise to predict and try to get as close as possible to the future demand. By doing so, it's important also to keep in mind that we have different kinds of demand. And the demand forecasting is the major component of the planning. It's going to be used for both marketing and operations to set goals and develop the execution strategies for doing this. We have two different kinds of demand. One is the independent demand, and the other one is the dependent one. Keep in mind, like dependent is that, for instance, if you're producing cars, you know that you're gonna use in one car, to produce one car, you need to get at least 4 tires. So for every single car that you're gonna produce, you need 4 tires. So it's completely dependent in the final product. The independent demand is a bit different. Is for instance, spare parts for production, or oil that you're going to use in the equipment. So it's something that is not straight connected to the final product, but it's also something that you have to provide to plan in the future. We can use the forecasting for both ideas, for both demands as a whole, right? We have different kinds of patterns that we can see in the market. The first one is the horizontal one, is that one that should be quite trend. It's quite flat. Usually we have some peaks, we have some decrease, but this data cluster has horizontal line. For instance, aspirin in the market, the pharmaceutical industry, there's not a big deal, a huge increase or a huge decrease in the market. It's something quite smooth in the market as well. The second one, is the trend. So you have here one that is increasing as time goes by, is increasing. It starts, for example, if you're launching a brand new product in the early beginning of the year, you know that as far as the market have been getting information about your product, it becomes more attractive. For example, you are gaining more customers, you are gaining more market as time goes by. It also can happen in the inverse. If you have a high demand, for instance, and the product is a bit old, it's getting old, so it's gonna decrease as time goes by. Like, for instance, iPhone, for example. You have a huge peak in the early beginning and then decrease as new models arrive. The third one is seasonal. So this one is very interesting. So we can get, here we have two examples, 1 year, in the first year and the second year. So in the first year, you can see, for instance, that on April and May, there is a decrease in the consumption of this product. And also we start again on August and September, there is a peak of that. We can see this, for instance, in the staples or in products for school supplies, for instance. So you are stop consuming in May and June as the school year is in the end, and you start buying again in the early beginning of the new school year. Here we also see two different performance in year 1 and year 2. The trend is quite similar, but the demand are different. Perhaps the second year you have a new competitor, so the demand seems to be the same, or I would say the dynamics will be the same, but the volume decreased. So for example, if your organization get lower market share, for example, in the second year. So you can see the same performance, the same dynamics, but in the lower volume. And here in the fourth one, we have something that we call cyclical. So here we can get, for an example, in years 1 to 6. So in the first year is a huge or a higher demand. Then on third and fourth year is a lower one, and then it comes increasing again on the fifth and the sixth one. We can see that it's different comparing to the seasonal. Here you can see like the fashion industry, for example, you have some specific kind of a fashion that it would be quite nice to get in the first year, and then the coming years become a bit old-fashioned, and that is a new launch of this product, and it becomes fashion again, right? So what we're going to learn in forecasting is that we are going to base today's exercise and the idea that we can calculate the demand. But I would like you to keep in mind that it's not only a matter of quantitative information, but you also need to get information based on consumer behavior, trends, how is the economics. So a lot of qualitative information, like experts information, so sharing information with other kind of research, not only base it on numbers, okay? All right, so we have random fluctuation, trend fluctuation, and seasonal fluctuation, and all those factors affect demand as well. So all demand is subject to certain fluctuation during the years, and you have, for example, in your organization, you can get several different kind of products, and all products can get different performance, different ways of fluctuation, right? So that's why it's important to collect some qualitative information as well. Okay, what we're gonna learn today are the 3 common forecasting techniques. Okay, it will require you a bit of statistic knowledge, not huge knowledge of that, but just some statistics tools that is going to support you on that. It's quite easy. Please trust me, it's easy to do it. Seems to be quite confusing perhaps in the early beginning, but it's very easy to calculate and later on to select what is the best for you. So we have 3 different calculations. We're going to start with the simple moving average, and later on I'm going to teach you a bit about the weighted moving, and the third one, the exponential smoothing. Very nice names, isn't it? But very interesting to know as well. First one, simple moving average. Here we have a kind of an average that we are going to calculate based on the past. 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 years, I don't know, depends on what you have in the period. What we are gonna call this period T. So it's up to you to define which one will be the best one. So you can calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, and then here you have the number of periods that you have it, right? Let's see one example. Imagine that we are working in the hospital and we are trying to calculate how many patients are going to arrive on week 4. We have data for the previous 3 weeks. So in the first week, we got 400 patients, and the second week, 380, and the third week, 411. The exercise that we are going to have here, the first stuff is that we're going to calculate the average of those 3 to forecast the week 4, okay? So if you're doing this, our calculation will be, our result will be 397. Okay, I pick all 3, divided by 3, and I reach this number. That is a quite simple forecast for the next week. All right, but if the actual number of patients arrive on week 4 is 450, what is the forecast error for the week 4? So we're gonna have 415 minus 397. So we know that 18 patients arrived more than expected. Okay, what we're gonna do for the week 5? Are we going to keep the same number, the 397? Are we adding 18? What would be the best alternative? For the simple moving average, we are going to consider the previous month, the previous week, 415, the real number of the previous week, and the other two, 411, 380, and divided by 3. And that's the forecast for week 5. Quite simple, okay? Hope it's clear. It's very simple, it's not a lot of sophistication that we are gonna have here. Okay, let's do an exercise. And what I'm gonna ask you is that let's try to do by yourself this calculation and press pause to practice. And as soon as you have finished, press pause again to see how I solve this, right? So what we're gonna have here, 4 different months, and here you have every single month we have a number of customer arrival. I'm gonna ask you to calculate first, use the 3-month moving average to predict month 5, and later on, with this result, if the actual number of arrival will be 805, what will be your forecast for month 6? And given the 3-month moving average forecast for month 5, and the number of patients that actually arrived, 805, what will be the forecast error? Try to do by yourself. Press pause, and let's see if your numbers, your results match with the one I have. I'm gonna wait for you, don't worry. Okay, are you ready? Let's do it. So using the simple moving average, what I did, I used the previous 3 months, calculate, divided by 3, and my forecast for month 5 would be 780 customers arrived. Hope it matched with yours. The second question was, if the actual number of arrival is 805, what will be the forecast for the 6th one? What you're gonna do? So let's consider the most updated information that we have and add the previous 2. Here I have 801.66. Wow, for sure we are not gonna have half a customer arriving in our facility. I hope so, but in that case, I prefer to consider 802 as the forecast for month 6. That's my decision in this exercise, right? Perhaps in different kind of a product, you can consider the number fragmented as this one, okay? All right, so what would be the error between our forecast and the reality? Quite simple again. Let's take 805 minus our prediction, and we have for month 5, 25 different patients arriving. Okay? All right. So let's think about the second strategy. And this one, instead of doing a straight average of the previous month, I'm going to consider some weight. For example, I am gonna say that the previous month is more important, more reliable, and probably the number will be closer for the previous month. That's why I consider a higher weight for the previous month. So that's your decision based on your expectation, based on the market you are. So what we're gonna do, using exactly the same exercise, we can have, here we have again, those three numbers, and I'm gonna say that number for the month 4 is the most reliable for me. So I'm going to consider 50%, for example. And the third one, 30%, and the second one, 20%. Here you can see that if we sum, we have 100, right? It's only one exercise, one example. You can consider more or less. It's up to you, okay? In that case, the forecast for month 5 will be 786, and the error will be 19. Remember, the previous exercise, the error was 25, and now was lower. Perhaps for this kind of market, the idea is better to use more a weighted average. Make sense for you? Please, if you have any questions or if something that you are not understanding in this exercise, in this class, please send me a message or book an appointment. I will be more than happy to attend you whenever you need, right? Okay. If the actual number of arrival will be 805, and we are going to provide the next forecasting for the coming month, will be quite close to the previous one, right? Again, 802. Okay? Hope it's clear. All right, so let's do something different. Let's learn now a bit more about exponential smoothing, our third method. Is a bit more sophisticated comparing to the weighted moving average, and it calculates an average of a time series by giving some more weight in the previous one, but also it requires other kind of information. Here we are gonna have something that we call alpha, and what we're gonna see is that this alpha will be our smoothing parameter. That could be something between 0 to 1, okay? So it's gonna be a smoothing parameter, or more emphasizing perhaps in the demo, in the previous demo. For being more clear perhaps to you, let's get here one example. So let's reconsider. Here we have the patients again, and let's reconsider the patient's arrival data of our previous example. So now on week 3, we have 411 patients, and we are going to consider an alpha of 0.10 to get some explanation smoothing. So what we're gonna do, we have the previous number. Here we have 411, 0.10. I'm gonna get this parameter for the last one, but I'm also considering what I put in the forecast in the previous month. So I'm going to consider also the learning experience that I have been getting month after month, right? So I'm gonna keep this exercise working to get a better prediction for the coming month. So here we're gonna, our number will be 392 for the week 4, or week or month, whatever. Does it make sense for you? Okay, so what's the forecast error between our actual demand, that was 415, and what I predict? Here, our error was 23, right? And how can we forecast for week 5? Okay, let's do the same again. Let's put here the reality with this alpha to smooth this, and the previous number, so I'm gonna get again 394. There are no right or wrong technique, right? The difference between those techniques is the error. As I said in the early beginning, all techniques are driving us to get as close as possible. Depending on the market, depending on the strategy, depending on the trend, you're gonna apply one on another. For the simple moving average, we have some pros and cons. For all, we have pros and cons. So we have one that is quick and easy to use, but is as a con, it's all demand drop it quickly. They're not accommodating seasonal and trends or business influence. For the weighted, it allows some emphasis on more recent demand, but it's not also easy to accommodate season demand patterns. And for the exponential smoothing, they are more simple, limited requirements for data, good for relatively constant demand. And as cons, forecasts will lag actual demand, not appropriate for high seasonal demand as a part or part with trends. Okay, again, all forecasting, we're gonna have failures, we're gonna have errors. So try to exercise and identify what will be the best one that fits your need. I uploaded several exercises, and there are some PowerPoint templates that you can find in Canvas where you can see some guided exercise, so you can see some solved exercise, so you can practice as well. Okay? Thank you for watching, and if you have any question, please let me know, right? Don't hesitate to send me a message, and I will be more than happy to attend you. Okay?